She's collecting overtime now.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call to order the St. John August 3rd Plan Commission meeting. If I could get a stand for pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With Sergio doing minutes and Jenna gone, we'll take it slow. We're done with Sergio. Take every opportunity after those comments earlier. All right, first we have roll call. Sergio?
Bob Burleson is not here today. Yolanda Cardona is not here. John Gill.
Here.
Joe Gomestego.
Here.
Bob Valois.
Here.
Jason Vlasic.
Here.
John Kennedy.
Here.
Attorney Adam Decker.
Here.
Engineer Ken Kraus.
Here.
Councilman Liaison Brian Blazak.
Present.
And Town Manager Joe Wizawati.
Here.
We have 5 members present. We have a quorum. Next on the agenda, we have minutes. We first have the July 6th Plan Commission regular meeting minutes. If everyone had a chance to review, make comments. After that, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the July 6, 2022 Plan Commission regular meeting minutes.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Bob. The motion was by John. Discussion, comments? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Anyone abstain? Motion carries 5-0. Next on the agenda, we have the July 20, 2022 Plan Commission Study Session minutes. Any comments, questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the July 20th, 2022 Plan Commission study session minutes as posted.
I have a motion by John. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I got a second by Jason. Discussion, comment? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries 5-0. Next, we have public hearings. We have no public hearings at this time. Next on the agenda, we have old new business. We have Astoria proposed preliminary plat at 10122 Parish Avenue. Petitioner wants to come up and give us an update on where we are. If you gentlemen would, for the record, just state your name and where you're from.
Hello, Tom Peterman with Cage Engineering.
Michael, Diamond Peak, 1313 White Hawk Drive in Crown Point.
And Aaron Berger, also with Cage Engineering.
Very good, gentlemen. All right, if you want to give us a status update on where you are with your preliminary plat.
Sure. Here's the latest and greatest is that we've worked with Ken, we've worked with Sergio to get to the point that we are. We're down to the last couple comments, nothing big, nothing major. I think everybody would agree that the engineering plans, the plat, are pretty much well along the way, along the path here. We did have something kind of come up over the last, let's say, week or two regarding the gas pipeline. We are going to ask for a waiver from the Town of St. John's requirements for street widths, path widths, and materiality of those 2 items. The gas line company that's involved on our site, and I don't know if we have if you want to pull that up, or I've got a zip drive that we could put up.
Yep.
That was a good drawing, but it's not going to work.
You want the letter or the?
Sergio, why don't we put up the drawing so he
Let's just
can
put up the
explain
plat.
where he's
The plat?
seeking
Yes.
his waivers. Yep, perfect.
Perfect. So the northern easements there, where the arrowhead is there, now where the cursor is, that's Red Oak Drive. Red Oak Drive goes perpendicular pretty much over the top of the gas easements there. 2 of the lines belong to TC Energy Group. The other gas line in that easement is for Vector. We've pretty much satisfied everything on Vector's list, but the problem that we have with TC Energy is over their 2 gas lines, their requirements or their guidelines are that the street width be only 25 foot wide. Any path that they have is 6 foot wide. The Town of St. John in both of those cases is 30-foot wide for the street width and 8-foot wide for the path. We've tried pretty much everything in our book to get them to agree, which was with precedent in other occasions where the gas line goes right through Park Place to the right and a bunch of other streets, or I should say to the right, to the east, and a bunch of other places where we have wider pavements. They didn't want to go on prior precedent. They say it's federally regulated at the moment. And in terms of the bike path, or the path that was 8-foot plan down Parish, they were unyielding on the 6-foot. They just said that this is a federal regulation and we're not going to waive that requirement for you. The other issue with that is, in both cases, I don't know if you want to bring up the letter, we did provide an exhibit. They asked that we do not put concrete. They want asphalt for the bike path, they want asphalt for the sidewalks. They haven't said anything about the concrete curbs that we have with the pavement, but everything else they asked for it to be asphalt. So I do believe, I know it was kind of late in the game, that the commission received a letter describing these items, and that's what's up on the screen right now. We have provided TC Energy's guidelines that specifically state these requirements. If we wanted to go into, I think it's like 63 or something.
Tom, real quick.
Yep.
I appreciate you brought up that in other circumstances within the town, this was never brought to, TC has never made these requirements. Did they tell you, besides it was a statutory or federal requirement, did they give you any other explanation why they're changing policy?
No. We did provide the 2 email correspondence. We had phone calls with them. We've had phone calls with the powers that be, and the engineer that's working with them is the one that's brought up the requirements. We've tried going both sides, talking to the executive side of TC Energy as well as with the engineering side. And the executive side is going towards the engineering side and saying, you have to deal with them. And I did provide those email correspondence later.
And to add on to Tom's point, as part of that ongoing,
Just closer to the microphone so they can hear you. I appreciate that.
to add on to Tom's point, in concert with that correspondence, we did include Ken and Sergio and asked for some additional feedback from the town on what some of those prior developments, prior construction projects that did adhere to town standards were, and they provided us with a list of what those installations were, which street they exactly were, and we provided that to TC Energy, and the response was more or less, well, that's all well and good, but these are requirements, you have to adhere to them.
And these requests for waivers, these are only happening in the areas affected by TC line?
Correct.
Okay. So we'll show it in future drawings, potential tapering of what, if this board decides to give the waiver, of where you're deciding to taper and things like that. So we have
That exhibit? We do show it on the exhibit that we included, so you would see the plans we will edit.
Okay. Thank you.
But the intent would be, as you see here, both sides have that different hatching that matches the asphalt hatching that we have for the road. And then the same thing over, it has the widths on the paths and all that. The other idea that we also put it, I mean, we even brought to them, I saw the sketch that we had sent to them. We asked them if we could put a median in there so we could still keep the 30-foot width, and they were still, they still wouldn't go with us for the 30-foot width. The reason that being that we're really going to taper that down. I mean, you lose 5 feet from both sides of the street. So what we're planning on doing to add to the plans is some reflective items in the middle of the pavement with reflective striping. So we have a definite lane division there. We'll also have some signage showing the tapering of the street. And we'll also have to call for no parking, because having a 25-foot width back-to-back curb, I mean, you can get 2 cars by there, no problem, but if you added a parked car on there, that would be difficult.
Well, there's no residents on either side, so hopefully it won't be too bad of a situation.
Correct, and I think this is only, what was it, 150 feet?
Yeah.
It's about 150 feet of red oak. So unfortunately, that was the consideration that came late in the game, so.
And the sidewalk issue is along Parish
The width is along Parish. We
material.
were listening to the town, and we took their request, and we had it on the original versions of having an 8-foot concrete path along that part. And they came back and said, no, you have to have a 6-foot wide path. The sidewalks are both 5 foot wide, but they wanted those as asphalt as well.
Ken, any comments to what's been proposed or discussed?
We've run into this situation on several occasions in the past 5 years, but as Tom said, they allowed us to put in 30-foot wide streets, back of curb to back of curb, and concrete sidewalks. But one of the things, the bigger thing I think, is they do not allow vibratory compaction of the sub-base or the aggregate base. So in the other ones that were in Greystone, we had them put in a fortified aggregate base, which would have been 6 inches of stone, then a tri-axle grid, and 6 more inches of stone, another grid, and then 3 inches of stone on top of that. And sometimes it passes the proof roll, and sometimes it doesn't. But remember, there's still going to be another 3.5 inches of asphalt put on top of that too. So that's what we did previously, and that's what I would ask for this one to be. And I would like to see that detail on the drawings. And in addition to that, we've always asked for 2 additional years of warranty for that portion of road, since it wasn't impacted with a vibratory compactor. And so far, we've had pretty decent luck with it.
Okay.
We have no problem adding that detail. The other thing, Ken, they're really pushing hard, and if you look at their guidelines, they say you only have to have 5 foot of cover. Now they're saying 5 foot to the sub base, so they added even another foot. So
Yeah, and this base adds 5 inches to the thickness of the
Right.
base.
so the revised plans that we're doing is raising that road to get that cover over the pipe. So
Creating an earthen bridge.
So it's just really an accident, they just want to minimize people covering this gas pipe.
Right.
Okay.
they want to get clearance from their gas pipe. I mean, they're not minimizing the clearance between the bottom or not. They're actually increasing.
Okay. All right, any questions from the board?
This federal regulations that you're talking about, this is TC showing you that?
Correct.
And did they say they can't get away with it, or they want us to waiver it? Explain that to me, please.
Sure, no problem. We involved them early in the process in June, and they looked into it. And
Wait, I'm sorry, when you say they
is TC Energy. TC Energy looked at it. We had
was
some.
it their engineer, or?
That's the issue. It was the executive team that they had.
And in that executive team, does it have names?
Yes,
Okay.
Karen Majewski and John Giamboni.
Okay.
And my colleague here, Michael, and I were on the call as well. We had virtual meetings with them, and we walked them through the plans. We didn't get into the intricate details, but we said, this is our spacing for, one of the big things is the proximity of the detention ponds. We were fine with that. We went over and we said, these are sidewalks. There's 3 utility crossings. We intend to meet all the clearance requirements. It sounded all well and good. They didn't have any issues. We moved it around. We said, this is the roadway width we have. This is the sidewalks that we have. We intend to put a bike path over here. We walked them through the plans.
And you walked them through the plans, the same executives, you walked them through it, right?
Correct.
The engineer wasn't there at all?
Correct.
Okay.
We got a call, I want to say, 2 weeks ago from Benjamin on like July 20th or something. Or we got it on like a Wednesday, and he wanted to meet on a Thursday. So we accepted the meeting, we talked to him, and he immediately said, your roadway width is too wide, your paths are too wide, and they should be asphalt.
Did you relay that to the executive board that you talked to about?
Yes,
What did they say?
they said they defer to their engineering staff. We had a call specifically with Karen last Friday.
Who's Karen?
Karen was that Karen Majewski person that was on the original
Okay.
in June. We had a call with her, what day was Friday, 29th? July 29th, we had a call with Karen to revisit this and say, hey, your engineer is putting different requirements than we thought we had covered on our call. Is there any wiggle room? Is there anything that we can work with? We're trying to work within the city or the town confines, make sure we meet the requirements. We don't want to have to elongate the approval time on our, and have to go through more planning commission meetings because we'd have to get a waiver. And she said, you have to speak with my engineer. So we called the engineer, got the engineer on the phone, and we had a lot of, as we included with the documentation, we had a bunch of emails trying different things to say, hey, did you look at this? Do you want to, we've got ideas on how we can meet your requirements. We have no problem with your detention. We don't have any problems with your utility clearances. The issue that we're having a problem is we're trying to make sure we meet the town requirements and meet your requirements. Do you have any wiggle room on the widths? And they said no. And they've said no probably 4 different ways on different emails. We don't have the email from today in this support yet in another email that they got us.
And Vector didn't raise this as an issue?
Vector's got different guidelines. They still have some of the same clearance, but they don't have the same, the clearance on the street was to the surface, right? Yes. So it's a little bit different with their clearance, but they didn't raise any of the widths issue.
So it's probably not a federal
Well,
law.
they said it's federal regulations.
I've got it in writing from today that it's a federal regulation.
But
From
it's
them.
funny that Victor didn't raise that as an issue. Yeah.
We're going to continue to talk to them. I just don't, I would love to come back and say, hey, by the way, somehow it changed, but I don't see that changing.
Any additional questions, comments? All right, Tom, what we'll do is, I appreciate the fact that you said we just got this today. Let us give us some time to digest it. We have a meeting coming up. I'll make the announcement. We have your public hearing for a preliminary plat in September, and at this time, we'll take up this consideration unless hopefully we'll cross our fingers. We figure out that TC was wrong on their, or, you know, we get an extra 5 feet, so, at that time. Ken, I mean, you've been on the emails.
I have.
Do you see any wiggle room?
I have a list here of things that needed to be addressed, and I would say 90% of them have been addressed. There's still this issue about the pipeline restrictions on road widths and such. But the other things are, you know, I haven't seen the easements yet, 12-foot easements yet. So I'm still waiting to see that. There's just a couple little things that need to be looked at, just storm sewer profiles and.
Very minor things
We've
that
already talked
we've
about.
talked about, and
I haven't seen them yet.
we intend to get you the whole package Friday.
And I like the creativity of trying to get that center median. I do like that. That's thinking outside the box. And unfortunately, they didn't go for that one either, but that's,
I won't even bring up my recent idea, so.
But it still needed a waiver because the curbs were only 18 inches instead of 2 feet.
but it puts a road back at the same alignment where they don't have to put the pavement. Because what's gonna happen is residents are gonna think, well, they missed this, right? That's what's gonna happen, and so,
It's gonna make the snow plowers happy.
yeah.
A little bit of sod repair in the spring for sure.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of sod.
But it would be a good question. I mean, Joe brings up a good point. I mean, if the other gas line didn't say it was a federal requirement, I would, somebody go back to TC. I mean, I don't want to poke the bear and all of a sudden the other gas line says, oh, yeah, we missed it. But it would be ironic that one was okay with it and the other one now all of a sudden is,
We have no problem poking the bear.
okay.
As a matter of fact,
Beer, bear,
Bear.
either way.
at that point, it's gonna be whiskey and beer.
Pool or pond, whatever.
All right.
works.
But at that same time, if we could find that the other part is not, they're probably in violation of federal regulations, then perhaps we all need to be on a standard that, you know,
Well, like I said, like Ken says, this isn't our first rodeo going over the gas lines.
No, we've had this
This
at
is
several
this is-
locations.
And it seems like in emails that Ken and Sergio have been on, this 25 feet has been somewhat uniform. So, just gotta figure it out.
Strange.
yeah.
Any other questions?
Hold
If
on
not-
for a second.
Oh,
No,
I'm sorry. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Joe.
Don't you think it's strange, and this is up to you gentlemen,
Yeah,
that one executive crew would say, it's a federal reg, you gotta live by it, and the other company goes, eh. Why would there be no consistency
That's-
among the two? And Joe was leading up to that, and I just figured I'll just come out and say it. How can one and not the other follow a federally mandated guideline?
because that'll put us in.
That's what I'm curious
Put
about.
you on, too.
Why?
We will ask them again. We haven't asked Vector that specifically because it's not in the
But
regulations.
We don't wanna poke the bear, as you said, and Michael agrees with me. I don't wanna poke the bear either. But the point is, there's no consistency, and John, I think, was leading up to that, and Joe was as well. And that's why what I said to him, where's the consistency? You got two companies that are following the same federal regulations. How come it's one going, yeah, you can't do this, and the other one going, who cares?
But are they?
But that's,
But I don't
Are
know that
they?
they are because they don't have the same consistency in their guidelines and criteria.
No, I'm not doubting,
Yeah.
they can do anything they choose.
Right.
But if you got a federal regulation, if one company's following it, why isn't the other one?
Councilman,
Make,
the question potentially could be, is there a federal regulation at
that's,
25 feet?
that was my,
So TC
leading
could be
up to
telling these guys it's a federal regulation,
Prove
and it's
it.
not.
prove it.
That's what maybe will,
If we do that,
It
that
might
would be
even
a
be
great.
what's in the line
think
too.
that's
If you're pushing
Right, that would be a
something
great
flammable,
thing if you
maybe
could
there's
have,
different
I
guidelines with
all right,
different
okay,
contents.
John, go ahead, John. I'm sorry, Joe.
Oh,
John
I was just
speaking.
gonna say, maybe the guidelines are different with the contents of the pipe, so maybe Vector's pushing something that's not as flammable as
that's true.
TC or
Or
something
the
like
type
that.
of pipe, maybe?
Or the walled construction of the pipe, yeah.
Just so we have protection on this plan commission, if this plan commission decides to make a waiver, that we understand why TC's regulations might be different than the
Absolutely.
other ones.
Right.
So-
Absolutely.
So if you guys, unfortunately, you got to go through the hoop of providing that some type of information to make our decision-making process a little bit easier.
And plus, to be honest with you, it'll give us information going forward, so if this question comes up again with any other development for this same companies, you're gonna know what their game is before they start playing it.
Great point.
All right, so if I hear no,
If it turns out that the other pipeline that's not requiring these narrower roads finally do decide to require them, how many extra lineal feet of street would be 25 feet wide?
Another.
So what we've shown here is just for the sake of
That other
consistency,
section.
that the 25 feet would be overhauled.
So that,
And we would be tapering
so you're
over
not
the
doing this.
50-foot transition from the gas right away.
so the 125 feet you mentioned at the beginning of this would be for both
Yep.
pipelines?
150-ish.
Because you probably don't want a hourglass
It'll
shape.
look,
Yeah, you're gonna have a model figure going through there.
Yeah,
it'll look somewhat right or correct maybe because you're going to be going into an open space, right? In both cases, you're going from a taper where you have the opportunity to have some parking with the subdivision or the lots abutting Red Oak Drive. And then you're going to have this open space where it tapers down and you're going to have no parking. You're going to have this sign that says it's a thinner section here. And then on the other side, it'll have the same thing. It'll widen up. It'll be along the lots where you can have parking and everything. So maybe, not to say anybody would think this way, but if somebody was driving through there, that just seemed normal to them because we were trying to promote no parking there.
But nobody quoted chapter and verse what the federal.
We don't have a citation, I wrote that down.
I mean, that would solve everybody's.
On both
questions.
sides, on both companies.
I can't tell you how many of those questions I've asked, but it's a good point.
I'm
so.
not criticizing you.
No,
I'm
no,
just
no, I
saying-
know. I like the way that you phrased it. It's a citation. What citation from the federal regulations are you following?
And what are the consequences if,
Exactly.
because it could be of a consequences and also guaranteeing what you need to do in the future.
And I think asking the executive staff or whoever on this committee that you talked to originally, what is the ranking of those individuals that they're making this decision, quoting chapter and verse and saying, we're following a federal reg and we can't deviate? Who are these people? Are they supervisors or what the heck are they? And how important are their decisions going forward? That's all.
The assessment that we made was basically because the original people we talked to was the executive team.
Right.
The people who were telling us this is the engineer or the staff level. So I believe it's the leadership is just standing behind and supporting their staff. So
Totally fine and acceptable. I'm just curious as to where the authority comes to say can't do it because the Fed says so, no.
There's something going on behind that.
it is.
Yeah, so
We thought it was different because that was the email that came just today.
Oh, yeah.
So up until this point, that point had not been circulated. They just kept saying, no, you can't do that.
And I could see the problem that you're having, that you're working on a timeline that, you're going back and forth, coming back up here and trying to explain to us what is really going on with these rules and regulations that they implemented. So,
The engineers have made no reference to the federal reg they're talking about?
and why?
Yeah. How come the engineers, not you gentlemen, but their engineering firm or their engineering staff, why don't they just say it's regular A, B, C, D, and that's the end of it? You guys can look it up and go, yep, they're right.
Well, let's them get the code from TC. They've been talking with them. You guys will get whatever code they can provide you. We can get that verified, because right now we're asking questions that I don't think anyone in this room can
Well,
answer.
I'm kind of throwing them out there so that they can get them answered.
I think they know what direction they,
No, I'm
unless you
not
guys
trying to
need.
yank their chain.
I think they're catching them, Brian.
The chain's been yanked, I think. No, I don't want to, if there's any other questions for them, I think you guys understand. If we have documentation, we have some sort of citation of code, we can understand. And John brings up a great point. It could be two different types of pipe material going through that line and the different requirements, and that just makes a lot, then we understand. That's all we're trying to get to.
We appreciate the feedback. The only thing that we'd ask is if there's any other feedback, and obviously we've talked to Ken about some of the things, but if there's any other comments, we'd love to be able to address them before September.
So we'll have the public hearing in September for the preliminary plat. Ken needs to provide us with a letter, meaning that you got all your I's dotted, T's crossed. And then I know we're tapering, to see how that tapering works. That would be nice on both the street, and then I think the material is understandable. It's not gonna be concrete, it's gonna be asphalt, but just how the tapering is gonna work and, have an understanding. Is there anything else, gentlemen, from the board?
See, they flipped the street name, so that's.
Yeah, that was one of the things.
Yeah, we worked with
not-
the chief and got those all ironed out.
All right, Ken, anything else from you? Sergio, anything else from you?
I'm good.
We'll probably remember something after you guys leave, but we'll get back to Sergio. So,
Do you have to make a formal announcement?
I
of
did.
a public hearing?
I did. I'll make it again. We will have a public hearing for preliminary plat at the September meeting.
All right,
All right,
thank you.
statutory code or
Thank
federal
you,
regulation.
gentlemen.
So, all right, gentlemen, thank you. All right, we have an update now for Cannon's Edition. They're a proposed preliminary plat for a two-lot subdivision at 8167 Wicker Drive. Gentlemen, again, for the record, your name, where you're from, and just give the board an update on where you stand with your plans.
Zach Cannon, 8167, Mark Cannon, 8167.
All right, any update for the pleasure of the board?
We have our updated plat right here from Glenn. I submitted the maintenance agreement We had that written up for the driveway, the easement agreement. That's been submitted. This is the updated one, I believe, that Glenn sent yesterday. There was one thing, I was going over some of the missing checklist items that we still need to address.
Okay.
One of the things on there was, Ken, you noted that there was 3 addresses for 8167. There's actually just one. So the whole property is one address. It's not 2 right now. It's just 8167. And then, yeah, and I just noticed that one little.
I think there's gonna need to be 3 addresses though, since you have 2 primary buildings on lot 1 and we'll have a new home on lot 2.
So the shop and the house are all 8167 Wicker Avenue.
Yeah, there's only one address there now, and there's, I mean, if you require the house that he's wanting to build to have a separate address, I don't know why that you would want to, that would cause confusion in my mind, but I know nothing about what's going on. But even for the firemen, if something were to happen, if they're looking for, you know, something that's 300 feet off the road, that's a whole nother address, because this, again, I don't know the ins and outs of all of this, but this is a lot more of just a lot division than a subdivision. A subdivision tends to scare people. That's why everybody freaked out when, you know, the Golden Pond people or whatever they are. They simply just want to, as you know, just build a single-family home, and there's never going to be any more houses back there. Also, he's the last man standing. My mom and dad are getting older. I'm getting older. I'm 56 years old. Anything that happens on that property is even, I mean, he's never going to sell it and move on. In the event that he, at the end of the road, if somebody if it gets sold, you know as well as I do, whoever buys that is going to bulldoze everything, and they're going to have to redesign everything and rehook up all their utilities and everything anyhow. Because, I mean, that's just my opinion, and I could be wrong, and I mean no offense by saying that. That's just what I think, you know. So, and again, if there has to be another address, then I understand, you know, rules are rules, you know, but
Yeah,
do you really need it? I mean, can it just be 8167B or 8167 back?
That would be a different address.
Correct.
Okay, yeah,
But it
yeah.
wouldn't be another number.
Yeah,
It would just
that's-
be
yes.
8167.
I mean, you could have the
Front.
residence as, what'd you say, 8167?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And the commercial building could be 8167B.
Sure.
Yeah,
One
Yes.
could be D.
That I think is more, that makes more sense. Yes, absolutely.
They need a separate identifier.
Sure.
Yeah,
For instance,
I
like
understand.
Northwoods next door, they have that home behind the restaurant. I believe they do. I think, if I'm correct, on their mailbox, it says like number 2 or something like that. Like, I believe whatever their address is, it's like out on the road, it says like 8161 2 next to their mailbox.
Also, just consider for, you know, logical sake, that the post office, when they're delivering mail,
Yeah.
let's say somehow
Or the
the
UPS
half,
guy.
yeah, the front or the back gets, you know, different owners.
I understand.
Sure.
How are you gonna get your mail? Somebody's gonna have to sit there and sort it every morning?
We've had no trouble.
No. I'm-
Excuse me, I'm
saying-
sorry,
Hey,
excuse
yeah,
me.
You can't, you gotta introduce yourself.
Please introduce yourself.
Owner of 8167 Wicker Avenue, and I do not want it divided into, I want it, the back lot divided, lot 1 and lot 2, that's all.
I understand what
Totally
your,
understand.
I understand what your goal is, but we, as a board, a plan commission, need to follow our subdivision control ordinance. And if it requires 2 addresses, then it's really up to us to decide if you require 2 addresses. I understand what you're telling us, but if our requirements say it's 2 different lots, it has 2 different addresses, you
Yeah.
will have to make a decision if you want to proceed forward with the plan to make 2 lots.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just
All
confused
right.
on like what you're getting at of like the number 2 or an ABC kind of
ABC,
situation.
yeah.
I think that makes,
Again, the front is, as she says, we've been that way, you know, I've been there since 1996, and their home is behind the shop.
yeah.
And
For instance, she gets all her mail.
just one lot,
Right.
and always has been just one lot.
Yeah.
So now if he has to be a second lot, or B, or rear,
Yeah.
or whatever, I understand.
Yeah, that makes
And I
sense.
understand rules are rules.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
If it's lot A and B.
yeah. I was confused by the
okay.
verbiage
I
on
was as
the,
well.
yeah.
I didn't know.
Just for mail delivery as
Sure,
well.
yes, absolutely.
we
And
got
that makes
And
sense.
again, in the event that if one of us is going to be gone, all of us are going to be gone. And I know nothing is written in stone and nothing is forever, and I understand.
Well, that's
what
why I
you're-
was hypothetically
Correct.
saying,
I
if
understand.
somebody lived in the back different
Sure.
than those living in the front, how do you get your mail? How do you
Right.
get your
Yeah,
deliveries?
for sure.
I
Yeah,
get
yeah,
it.
separate
Absolutely.
mailboxes.
And I agree.
All right, guys, I'm sorry. I got so many people speaking.
Yeah.
So, Ken, is there, that you got an updated plan? Have you had an opportunity to review it? I don't know when,
I've had a chance to look at it quickly, but not to review it in depth.
Okay.
Just came in this week.
Yeah,
so your guy, Glenn, will
Glenn.
work with Ken.
yes.
Let's get
I'll
the,
talk to Glenn if I have questions.
Okay.
okay?
But I'd like to get this address thing resolved here. Are we looking for 3 different addresses?
We're looking into the subdivision control ordinance. My understanding is that the current subdivision control ordinance prohibits the uses of letters.
I believe that's
so-
correct, yeah.
So we are looking to confirm that right now.
Okay. So our subdivision control ordinance says you cannot use letters to delineate between properties, and I'm using big terms I shouldn't be using. So if you have the rezone coming up in September, the
Right.
public hearing, at that time, you would potentially, if that's rezoned and it redo a primary plat, you will have a second address.
Well, you would
Okay.
need to show the address on the primary plat to record it so that Lot 2 has,
B has a separate
its own address.
For the back lot.
Okay, I understood you to say no, that you didn't want that to happen.
I didn't want
She,
to
yeah,
But
she-
would do they
divide
need
it.
to,
I want the front to stay together.
but if a primary plat, do the primary replat, that front lot would have to have 2 separate addresses, potentially. So that's something we're looking into.
okay.
Okay, I mean, again, I'm not one to rock the boat, you know what I mean? But
No, you don't know what you get, let's you ask, right?
Sure,
Yeah.
but.
Why don't
the
you
front
ask for it?
Property is locked in, we can't do anything with it, and we can't, and again, they're old, they're not gonna be here, you know, I mean.
You're not old, come on now. We're-
No, I mean, honestly, in the whole scheme of things,
Yeah.
and I don't know why you would need 2 in the front.
It could be a public safety issue, you got 2 separate buildings.
But it's,
I have no idea.
If,
well, and the front lot is zone commercial, and it is, shouldn't matter what's on it, it's a commercial lot. And it's one address.
Mr. Cannon, why don't we, while they do search, you give them a call tomorrow, unless they can find it in the meantime. We could get you the answer for lot number 1, because that has the 2 primary structures on it. We know now lot 2 will most definitely have a second address.
Understood.
I don't know what the ramification is having 2 addresses. That's a great question. I can't answer that, so, but,
I'm not sure that
you
would
know,
apply necessarily.
we'll just have to look what our code requires. But in the meantime,
are these two,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, these two, lot 1 has a key number, right? A parcel key number.
Yes.
Lot 2, does it have a parcel key number?
Well, we haven't technically been
Okay, you have to
approved.
get that.
Yeah.
Trying to get that.
Yeah,
Yeah, this primary plat will create a secondary lot.
right, yeah. Technically, there is no second lot
Right.
When
right
they
now.
record this at county, that gives them the second lot and the second key number.
Right, then they'll have a key once you let them split the.
Right.
But Ken is
Split in
absolutely,
half.
Ken is absolutely right. We got to figure out this address issue, because from what I see and hear, I don't know if there's any other outstanding issue, Ken, that you see on this?
No, I think Glenn's done a pretty decent job of answering most of the questions that I had. Like I said, I only had a chance to look at it real quickly. I had a list of, I don't know, maybe 6 things that needed to be addressed, and, you know, one of them was the easement that they put here on the south property line. Another was the invert elevation of the sanitary sewer. The addresses were one.
Yeah,
The benchmark, they need to show the minimum elevation of the building, the new building, so.
The
floor can't
proposed
be any
home.
lower. I mean, it has to be on the plat of what the elevation of the floor elevation is. So that's easily done. You know, you got a 691 running right through the building, so 691 and a half is your floor.
Okay.
You know, simple as that. But it needs to be shown on the plan.
Yeah, Glenn seemed confused on some of the checklist items. He seemed to phrase it like, because of this being like a one-home development, he seemed confused that the checklist was more addressing actual subdivision.
This checklist is for a subdivision, which is
Yeah.
what you're doing here. But the subdivision that the checklist is for involves
What the last guys
streets.
were doing.
You have a,
Right.
you have an easement with a
Yeah,
driveway
yeah.
on it,
Okay,
so
okay.
You don't have streets.
Right.
Okay,
There's a lot of things on there that would apply to, 10 rows of residential on one side. 10
Sure,
on the other,
sure,
Right.
Street down the
sure.
middle.
So a lot of those we
A lot of
can,
them do not apply.
okay, okay.
We just wanted to make sure of that because I don't want to waste another meeting
Yeah,
saying, why isn't it drawn on here that we don't have
Exactly.
curbs or don't have a fire plug or don't have
I will
driveway
send
accesses?
Glenn a list of items that have to be addressed.
Okay.
It'll be a very short list.
that'd be great. Yeah, that'd
Less-
be great.
Less than a half a dozen.
And he was concerned about having to drag in another engineer.
Yeah.
That would do the things you're talking about that he couldn't necessarily do. And he, which none of us want. So,
Right,
you know, we
yeah.
Can't afford and
Which
don't-
I think
don't
he
wanna-
used the phrase like proprietary engineer or something like that. He was essentially what he said, just, he
I
was,
mean, the address for lot 2 is going to be 8165 or 8169.
okay,
Depending on what's the address to the south and what's the address to the north. of you.
Right.
sure.
And again, I understand that I have a whole nother key number and everything, once the line is, once it's split.
Right, yeah,
I mean, although with the front building having the existing key number, which isn't really gonna change, it's just gonna change size, then it shouldn't really change. We won't wanna make that another address unless we split it down the middle. Then you'd have two addresses, but if you had one, if it's got one partial, then should just have one address. From logically thinking, I could be dead wrong.
Unfortunately, that's the perk of dividing this property.
right,
Now that becomes put on the table, so.
sure.
All right, with that,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just want to add, this is to Ken's comments. So the agreement for maintenance of shared driveway, I reviewed this. A couple of things. First of all, it's drafted as an agreement, and I don't believe there are two separate owners of the two lots, because we don't have two lots. So it can't, an agreement couldn't even be reached, because we don't have two separate lots, and if they're owned by the same person can't make an agreement with themselves. Secondly, it doesn't address utilities, or really, the shared, or the ability of the utilities to provide service to what is identified as Lot 2. So what I'm going to recommend, and this has been discussed previously, the easement to allow not only ingress and egress over Lot 1 upon Lot 2, also needs to include terms that allow for the utilities to provide service to Lot 2. And so it needs to expand the services and the provision of benefits over that easement to include, the utilities as well. And I think it should be included in the plat. Because I don't, again, for the reasons I raised, I don't believe a party that owns both lots can enter into an agreement with him or herself and make it a legally binding document. But if it's in the plat of subdivision, then I think it does become legally binding, and if it's recorded, then it will basically be able to be reviewed in the future by any future owners of the property.
so understanding the lot hasn't been divided potentially yet. Understanding, but addressing the ownership question, is it, I don't know if we've ever asked, is it gonna be under the same ownership?
Well, no,
They're
yeah.
planning on switching the back half to his.
Right, Rhonda Cannon technically owns the whole property right now, right? So then once we have our approval of Lot 2, then we'll get it rezoned to our residential, then I will become the owner of Lot 2, whatever we're calling it, right, the back half. And I was just, this maintenance agreement was just drafted in the 2 weeks since we last saw you guys.
Yeah, that hasn't been, that was just for your approval.
Yeah,
It
just a
hasn't-
draft.
It hasn't been signed or anything
Yeah.
like that. That was just to throw it at you guys and say, is this what you're talking about?
Yes.
Which, if he brings up a valid point, I mean, they are talking about pulling the the computer, TV, all that's coming from the easement behind Michael's Restaurant, correct? And the only thing coming through the front lot is gonna be sewer and water.
According,
I don't know where NIPSCO and Comcast and all those guys are gonna go, that's up to them.
Yeah.
But you're providing an easement that, if they wanna put it there at the south
Right.
line, probably the easier place to put it, but they could put it right down the middle with your ingress, egress, and utility easement where your water and your sewer service lines are too. But I don't think they wanna stick it underneath the pavement.
Well,
Yeah.
and I was gonna ask, there's plenty of room on both sides of that property. Why couldn't they bring everything down either property border?
Well,
I know
they
there's
can bring it
a
down the
10-foot.
south, cause you're gonna provide an easement. You don't have an easement on the north.
Right, okay, I got it.
So if you change your 10-foot side building line to 10-foot side building line and easement, now you have an easement there and they could go that way if they want.
Understood.
That'll be entirely up to them.
And my observation is, just based on the plat map and where the buildings are located, there might be more room. Well, if it's gonna be 10 feet, it's 10 feet, but I think contractors would have more room to work along the north property line than the south. to get to
I
the-
agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's nothing there. That's wide open.
So that would be, I would recommend, Mr. Chair, that they consider providing, right, an easement along the north lot one.
But I can see why they provided one on the south property line, because there's utilities already there.
Right.
For buyers.
right,
And they might have to reduce that south easement to 8, because it looks like the residence is currently in the easement
Yeah,
that they're
it's tight- it
providing
is tight
by
over there.
scale.
yeah.
It's tight that, on that side, on the south side.
Yeah, our minimum easement is 12 feet, but you've already got a 15-foot abutting it. So whatever you could add to that, you've already met the minimum.
Yeah.
On the south side, it looks like you're gonna be okay, and there's already facilities there. I don't know if there's enough facilities that they could serve one more lot with them. That's up to the utility companies. But having another easement along the north property line wouldn't hurt and gives them an option. Might reduce some installation costs.
Right. I agree and I understand. And again, as he said, that north side it's wide open. There's nothing going that way. So you could, and there's 2 manhole covers, I believe, and a fire plug right in front of the shop. There's one to the south and one to the north. Sewer covers, and then the fire plug is almost in the middle, but it's a little bit to the north side. So all that's already there.
Right, you've got fire hydrants on 41, you have fire hydrants in the Myers addition.
Right.
Just be careful when you do tie into the water line, because we do have an 8-inch interconnect right there that your people hook up to the regular water main and not the interconnect,
Okay,
or else you won't have any water for.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Sure.
There's times when that's not
Yeah.
on.
Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, to the user agreement, anything can be, like I said, that was just like a rough draft that we just had, tried to get in for this meeting.
And Mr. Chairman, what I will do, I mean, I can provide something to Ken and perhaps to Mr. Kratt about language that I think could be incorporated into the plat that would address my concerns.
That would be,
Okay.
that would be awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Okay.
That'd be fantastic, yeah.
So let me just go over the 3 items we talked about, just so everyone's on the same page. Additional utility easement on the north side of your property, potentially for your consideration. The easement agreement, or not the easement, the maintenance agreement update. Town attorney will work with your attorney and Ken to get that modified to where everyone's comfortable. Mostly Adam, our attorney, so
Okay.
making sure he's comfortable. And then we'll figure out the address on potentially lot 1, on how that situation, and Sergio, will you get back to the Cannons?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, and
Is
I appreciate all the help
yeah,
from Sergio and
yes.
indirectly to Ken. I mean,
Yeah.
they've been pretty decent.
And Mr.
How about
Cannon,
that?
I appreciate the comment. We don't want you to keep on coming back here. I'm just trying to go through the process to make sure we're dotting our i's.
I get it.
And then
Yeah.
you don't have to come back another month again.
No,
That's the last
yeah.
thing we want to happen.
Yeah,
I got it. And again, just to go, I mean, even if everything goes through as intended, I'm still not, I don't know why there would be any need for any additional address for the front.
Okay.
That's that really doesn't even make any sense.
Understand.
So, just so we know that, whatever we have to do, and again, if that is gonna be the back address, that's fine.
Okay.
For sure.
So we got those 3 items addressed. So we do have a public hearing for a rezone in September, at the
Okay.
first meeting in September.
Right.
This board only makes, just so you understand the process, this board only makes a recommendation. Then it will have to go to the town council, or council liaison, they make the final decision. So this
Right.
board only makes a recommendation, just so you understand.
sure.
And then if Ken, we rely on Ken to get us a letter stating everything for the primary plat has been checked, then we could potentially take up that issue at the September meeting as well.
Okay. And
Right.
also, I believe I'll be back at the end of August is that correct, Sergio? I'll be, August 27th, I believe it is?
17th.
17th?
August 17th for the study session.
For the study
study
session.
session,
So I'll be for that, and I'll make sure to have, I have to do my legal notices for the rezone and get all those out, so I'll make sure to have those out.
Awesome.
By the-
And then that gives us one more chance for us to talk to each
For
other,
sure.
make sure everybody's on the same page
Okay.
so that
Good deal.
everything moves smoothly in
All right,
September.
excellent.
Great.
And I would just like to ask if there is anything else that might come up that anybody may know of, please let us know, like, right now.
Well, besides connecting to the correct water line,
Okay.
anything else Going once, going
I mean,
twice?
they're gonna do the sidewalks along 41 too, right?
That, that's a whole nother, I have no problem with conforming to whatever. However, it seems to me to have a floating sidewalk that goes nowhere except in front of my business, slightly odd. I would ask for a waiver that when it comes in front of Michael's, then I put mine in, because Northwoods is the next lot to me north, and they're Cherville, so it's gonna stop at my property anyway. I understand what you guys are shooting for, and I'd be glad to comply, but I don't know, I mean, can I wait to comply until it's a reality, instead of having a sidewalk that goes nowhere?
Mr. Cannon, you make what I would say is a valid comment, but you were not the first. I think we went through
Yeah.
20 people last year
Right.
that made the same comment, and you won't be the last.
Right. I'm sure.
And I'm trying to get to the point, someone made a comment saying, well, I try to ask. I go, I'm trying to get to the point in this town where you don't ask anymore. Unless it is a issue where, you just don't have enough space, or there is an engineering issue that you can't put a sidewalk in. That's what we're hoping to get to.
Don't know where it would have to run, or if you guys are you gonna tell us where it has to be and how far off the
I
road
think
it has to be?
your engineer will sort of lay it out based on our specifications.
Typically, it just goes right at it'd be along the back of the walk would delineate your western property line. So it'd be from your front property line to face 41, 5 feet out into the right of way.
Because we do have the
Or
ditch.
8 feet out, because it's an
There's
8-foot
a
walk.
ditch there,
They're-
and the manhole covers are there.
Yeah, ditches on both sides.
So if your engineer can make a case that it's not
I mean, if
physically, but we will have our engineers review it and tell you, and then we'll have to make a decision at that time,
I
so.
understand.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, are you going to force everybody to do it? And there isn't any in front of Michael's Restaurant and the Myers Strip Mall
Yeah.
right now, there aren't any.
When I say, I don't like to use the word force. I would rather say we make them comply. They comply with our zoning ordinance. I think this board, in the last 2 years,
One or two, yeah.
one or two waivers, just because they only had 3 feet and they couldn't meet the requirement. Other than that, you could talk to Family Express on Parish and 231. We made them put a sidewalk in. There is no sidewalk anywhere near their facility. We did it for Coin.
Could you guys raise your hand and tell me who came up with the sidewalk plan? I want to see.
I'm on the soapbox. I'll be the first one. I was the first. Well, I'll take the credit. I'll take the heat. But I just think we all agree that people need to comply, and if they need a waiver, you got to prove to us why you need one.
I
So
get it. I mean, it does just,
I-
to make a sidewalk that no one's ever going to walk on?
and if we continue with that philosophy, we'll never have sidewalks in this town. So Awesome. Any other questions, comments? If not, Ms. Cannon, we'll see you in September or August 17th.
I'll see you in a few weeks.
And then September. Again, I'll make one more announcement. We have the public hearing for the rezone for the Cannons addition to R1 residential. All right, have a great
All
evening.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Anyone public comment? Is there anyone online that would like to speak? Sergio, do we have anyone on site? Hearing none, I'll make any comments from the board. Liaison, Councilman, Joe, Adam, Sergio. All right, make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
John and Joe, first and second. We are all in favor.